Hello, everyone. My name is Joe Bosques, and welcome to Divesoft TV. We are starting a new series where we will be focusing on role models in the technical diving community. And today, to kick us off, I have my friend Jill Heinerth, who is a famed photographer, cave diving explorer, technical rebreather diver, and published author. So, great. So, welcome to the show, Jill.
Thanks. It's nice to be back with you, Joe.
Yeah, I think it's been a year now since we last chatted on via live stream.
Really? Okay, this year went fast.
Right,
or
right.
very slow at times.
It's definitely been a change of pace, especially I imagine to what you're typically used to in terms of expeditions and just kind of going, and you're kind of pushing to the next project. So.
Yeah, I mean, all of my projects last year got canceled or postponed, so I've been home for a whole year. It's crazy. It's been nice in some ways and challenging in others.
Yeah, for people that are very outgoing, they're used to kind of going. It's definitely been a complete shift in gears, and but. This is kind of a lot about what we're going to talk about today is basically when it's, choosing kind of a non-traditional path of the type of work that you do. And so so a lot of times when we're growing up, we kind of have a lot of pressures to, choose a very stable path. And, you yourself, you're very much in a non-traditional path, I imagine. Can you talk a little bit about going the non-traditional route?
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely a non-conformist, I suppose. Even as a kid, trying to figure out what to take for studies in university, I did really well in school academically, and I'm sure my parents dreamt of an engineer, a doctor, or a lawyer, and then I surprised them and chose fine arts instead. I loved science. I loved everything about science, but I didn't want to specialize. Like, I'm a bit of an explorer, really. Right. I've just got so many curiosities that I want to satisfy that I kind of wanted to do everything rather than just one specialized area of interest. But yeah, loved being outdoors, loved being in the water, and then that art business just slowly shifted to, I want to be creative, but I don't want to be creative in an office. I want to be creative underwater. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And is that was there any kind of hardships with choosing that? If you can say, like, what was hard about going that route?
Even when I went to school for fine arts and then started a business in advertising, everyone around me was like, "Oh my God, how are you going to make money?"
Right. Right. That's
and then
exactly
then I established a great career in advertising and marketing and graphic design. And then I was teaching scuba nights and weekends, and that, I sat at my table, my drafting table in the daytime, and I went, oh my God, my true love is to get out of here as fast as I possibly can. Yeah. So then to just kind of sell everything and embark on a full-time career as a diver, then everybody said, oh my God, how are you going to make money? So once again, I was kind of like shunning the norms. My dad was writing me letters about, oh my God, the biological clock is ticking. Shouldn't you get married, have babies, and do something stable? And it's like, not if I want to be happy.
It's so many unbelievable pressures, and it really sounds like you really have to commit to it.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying this was just some instantaneous decision. It was a couple of years to decide to sell everything. And it really came down to, okay, I'm young. What have I got to lose? I can always come back and restart a career that's more traditional. But even in my diving career, as I started to embark on more and more technical dives, people pulled me aside, hey, little girl, don't you think you're moving too fast? Or this is dangerous. There's no room for women in this kind of diving. And, but I just, I followed my heart.
Yeah, that's that's the kind of underlining thing, is that you follow your passion and you're letting it drive you. You're doing it because you love doing it, and you were able to do all that work because you love doing it. So.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's no question. I mean, if you get up in the morning loving what you do, you kind of pinch yourself and it doesn't feel much like work, and you'll work twice as hard.
Right. Yeah, exactly. You will work so hard with that. And so now you, as an explorer, it's you're very much driven to push and see new places. That's not an easy thing. A lot of people will see kind of glamorous photos and whatnot, but they don't see all the work that it takes to get to that new place and that new, the new horizon. Can you talk a little bit about the drive to push through in these types of traveling and expeditions?
Yeah, I write about this in my book, but I really believe it's genetic. I mean, there's a certain percentage of us that do have this gene, the DRD47R allele.
Oh yeah, you just named it. It's this one.
No, it's called the 7R gene. And basically it's the adventure seeker's gene. But there's a very important thing to distinguish. Whoop. I don't know if you can hear that. Oh. Someone was just calling me. I'm not sure if the audio was coming through or not. I'll just start that over. Yeah, I believe this is truly genetic. I mean, there's a gene, the DRD47R allele. I know that sounds complicated, but I write about it in my memoir, in my book, Into the Planet. It's the 7R gene, and it's the adventure seeker's gene. And there's an important thing to distinguish here. Just because you're an adventure seeker or because you carry that 7R allele, it doesn't make you risky, right? It makes you someone that's interested in sensations and novelty. And again, it's not frivolous. It doesn't mean that I'm a risky person. It doesn't mean that I'm like some person that needs an adrenaline fix. It's not that at all. Right. Yeah. No, it's like the curiosity gene, but historically, novelty and sensation seeking led us to have certain people who would go out and hunt, right? And go find and gather for the family, where there's other important family members that need to stay home and farm and make the preserves to put away, that kind of stuff. So that 7R gene just drives my curiosity. I'm a problem solver, and someone that looks for newness and learning curves, and that has served me well. And it doesn't mean that I'm foolishly jumping off the cliff to have some new sensation. It's really quite different. And I think if you're a 7R person, like for a long period of time, you find better and better ways to be safe in these new endeavors.
Right. And, that's really great how you kind of talk about that. Historically, as far as humankind has been, we've always had people that, stay and they keep the family, the home, the community safe. And then you have people that would basically go out into the dark forest where all the spooky sounds are at night, and they go and they find new things. And it's such an important balance. And people have these different drivers, and you find that allele that expresses itself in the curiosity. And like you said, it's not like I'm going to go do risky things. It's more kind of emboldened in the curiosity. It's absolutely discovery and exploration. I mean, for me, I'm literally swimming into a dark cave that nobody's ever been in before. But, everybody has those same kind of dark caves in their life, and they maybe tenderly step into the darkness and wait for their eyes to adjust. But in that dim light, looking into the blackness, that's where we all have a chance to be, explorers and experience discovery for ourselves or maybe for humanity. Now, what would you say to someone that is very, they don't like the idea of that, but they find themselves kind of pulling back to kind of exploring new things, but it's like they're kind of tentative to it. What would you kind of say to someone like that?
Well, I would say, as a good equivalent, think about people that get onto a roller coaster, right? They might be scared, like, oh my God, look at it, I'm really scared. We're going to be upside down. We're going to be strapped in. Is that safe? But then they choose to get on the roller coaster and they turn fear into discovery, newness, and excitement, right? So you can easily turn fear into excitement by learning and preparing, right? So like the equivalent to diving is like, okay, I'm scared when I go diving and I want to dive with other people that are scared too, because we care about risk, we care about the outcome. So when we're kind of looking at this dive that we've never done before, or even one that we have, then we use, procedures and protocols to help us do things safely. And that's where the problem solving comes in. Like you don't want to just throw yourself off into the environment and, take that risk, right? Yeah. So you use tools and you use protocols to make things safer so you can have these discovery experiences. And if you never step into the darkness, if you always run from fear, you'll never have anything new in your life. So, you'll be running from fear for the rest of your existence.
Right, exactly. And we had a dive the other day where, the conditions were bad and, the visibility went bad very quickly. And so we're just like, nope, we're not going to do the dive. And so we just turned around and made our way back.
Right. But you learned something from that experience. It's not a failure. That's discovery learning. It's sort of framing the limits of your experience, and whether it's like, safety or psychological comfort or whatever it is that pulls you back, that ability to abort and turn around is one of the most powerful tools of an explorer.
Exactly. It's I always talk about that NASA has explored so much of the universe, all without minimizing the endangering of people, because they were able to do it like in a certain way and to follow these procedures, these parameters, all while learning, through the hardship of putting people into space, but they were also able to explore by being safe at the same time. There's a balance to it. The same thing with cave diving, and we follow the rules. Yeah.
And there's a lot of patience there too. I mean, gosh, this COVID situation is forcing us into so much patience, right? There'll always be another dive ahead. There'll always be another day. I mean, here we are a year into this whole situation and my province is back on a stay-at-home lockdown. I mean, I was supposed to be in Quebec this week filming a free diving person under the ice, right? And literally on Saturday night, they said, sorry, the whole province is going back into stay at home. And I'm like, oh, well, I'm going there alone and I'll be socially distant and we'll be wearing a mask. And really, in terms of the diving, it's not a big deal, but I have to drive 4 hours to get there. And what if I have a car accident and then end up in a hospital that's already overstressed with doctors and nurses that haven't had a break in a year? Like, I can't do that. I have to do my part to keep the whole community safe and be patient.
Right. Yeah. And that's something we talked about kind of before jumping online. It was, people that even as the basic level of being a dive instructor or being a diving professional in the community, or a photographer, basically an influencer, or just an adult, we all have a role to demonstrate being responsible and being good role models. We may not agree with everything, but we're going to do it because it's the right thing to do.
It's interesting because you can really suffer, an identity crisis, like especially in these days of social media. And I see it a lot in younger people, and my heart goes out to them. Like suddenly when you're someone that's been away for a year or half a year or 2/3 of the year, and then you're suddenly at home and you're not doing the day-to-day exploration or the expeditions that you're so known for. Like everyone's hanging on your social media for some new post or no picture. It's really easy to feel a loss of identity from that experience, but you are still who you are, and don't let social media pressure you. And even before COVID, I saw this. and maybe I'll even invoke the name of a dear friend that I think suffered from this. So a dear friend, Agnes, who is no longer with us, who died in a diving accident. Mere months before her death, like we shared a hotel room at a conference in Europe, and she was saying that she felt a lot of pressure, like every Friday when she was about to go off and do some new stuff. Like everyone's like, "Oh, what's Agnes going to do? What's Agnes going to do? What's she going to show us Monday morning?" And she felt a lot of pressure to constantly be doing more, further, deeper, more extreme. Right. And that's such a shame. And that may have been one of the contributing factors that cost her life.
Right.
But, I would say whether you're doing the dive or aborting the dive, you're a role model. So it's frustrating to me to be home so much this year. Like I've fortunately had a chance to do quite a bit of diving, but not as much as I would normally do. And I realize my skills will have eroded, and I'm going to need to slowly embark back into some of my more extreme diving. And at 56 years old, I can accept that, but I understand that a younger, less patient person who's trying to establish their career or their brand, it's very challenging, but that's the maturity, and that's the ultimate rule of survival. Right. Can you be patient? Can you remain diligent with those protocols and not cut away at that pie until you're kind of hanging on the edge, right?
Right. Yeah, great words. It's it's a big example of that. There is pressure, especially for diving professionals. Maybe you're not teaching in a pool every day, but there is those skills do erode, and the unfortunate thing is that the only people that understand this are usually other divers, and so it's there is pressure to push yourself, and it does take a lot of awareness and maturity to pump the brakes, and even worse when the brakes get forced on you. It's to keep your sense that like, okay, I'm going to take a step back, and it's a hard thing to do, and it does contribute to people pushing themselves and potentially hurting themselves.
Yeah, I mean, we're all experiencing a normalization of deviance in society right now, and what that is. I mean, think about yourself a year ago when the lockdown first happened. Like, we were terrified of this unseen virus. I mean, if COVID caused people to bleed out of their eyeballs, we'd be living in a different world right now. But it's very much invisible, and the people that get sick are kind of like off the radar, right? Unless it's affected you personally and you've lost a family member or a friend, then there are actually people out there that are now saying, well, COVID doesn't exist, or this is all like, blown out of proportion, right? So there's a normalization of deviance. Like a year ago, you might have been a lot more vigilant in your procedures. Well, in a lot of places right now, COVID positivity rate is higher, and some of the strains are more likely to get you seriously ill. And, frankly, as a diver, I look at that and I go, I do not want some debilitating, lung disease that might impair my ability to dive in the future. It could impair me cognitively. There's all kinds of things that can go wrong. Right. So I have to remember and remind myself the behaviors that I was doing a year from now, and think, rationally, not emotionally, about how badly I want to be in the water right now. Think rationally about the risks that I'm taking. I mean, normalization of deviance led to the explosion of a space shuttle, right? Right. They knew they had a battle ring, and yet they said, oh, well, it hasn't failed yet.
Exactly. I always say, how many times did things need to go wrong?
That's right. Yeah. So we want to prevent those times when the O-rings fail, not just say, well, it hasn't happened yet, so it won't happen to me. So we have things like checklists, right? Yeah.
Exactly. And, kind of talking about checklists, and with the kind of community work or communities that we're involved with, let it be the local diving community, the rebreather community, cave diving community, the importance of teamsmanship and being a good buddy. along the lines of being with role model. It's can you talk about that? Because sometimes it's often like, well, I'm just going to watch out for me. I'm just going to take care of myself. Oh, we're sharing the cave together. People won't say that online, but they'll act it out at the site, and that's the real thing that bothers me so much.
Yeah, I think we still have a long way to go with the social culture of safety in diving, and especially in rebreather diving. Like, we're still, we're doing better. We're doing better. We were losing a lot more people 20 years ago to rebreathers, but we were still learning about the rebreathers. Yeah. Right now, I look at the whole situation. I go, okay, none of us needs to be a test pilot anymore. There are well-designed machines made by great manufacturers with good safety protocols that we should be following. And so when we're diving as a team, we have to be willing to take on self-rescue and buddy rescue at any point. And before you get in the water and descend, you have to realize that that's an affirmation or responsibility to you and your community. Even if you're a solo diver, you have to think, I'm taking a risk. It's not just for me. This risk will affect my family, my friends, maybe the community, maybe a dive site will get closed if something happens. So the responsibilities go far beyond a personal choice for you to kind of, fulfill your need to dive. So it's a big responsibility.
Exactly. And, we have to think of the big picture on that. And it is so important, especially, there's a site that's local to here in Tampa, Buford, that they built a boardwalk to ease the access to. And, it was a very kind of polarizing thing in the community, because they were like, well, now everyone can go there. You don't have to trek through the mud anymore. And I was like, do people understand you're damaging the environment when you're trekking through the mud? And so, but you have not just technical cave divers going there anymore. You have all sorts of divers going there. And we all do have that responsibility to be a good buddy and keep our friends and people that we're with accountable. Like, hey, we need to dive within our limits. And so we need to be very self-policing.
And I would add to that too, that we sometimes get some weird cultural hierarchies that happen in diving, like oh, so and so is like a god or a goddess in diving, or wow, they're such a celebrity that they're untouchable. And I would like to encourage our audience just to say, hey, we're all just divers, we're all just equals, and we need to create an environment where the newest diver, first of all, has an opportunity to be mentored by someone with more experience. But the newest diver also should be empowered to speak up. Now, I know, more than a few filmmakers who have lost their lives in diving accidents. And part of the responsibility, I think, in the ultimate, accident analysis had to come down to the fact that the people who were lower in the echelon did not speak up, or there wasn't an environment that enabled them to speak up. So they might have said, wow, gee, that's weird, but that's so-and-so. I can't say anything. I'm just a new diver, right?
Yeah.
But we have to create that environment where we understand that everybody's human and everybody makes mistakes. And if somebody tells me that I've got something that's not clipped or a hose that's hanging off weird, I appreciate it. I can't see myself underwater, and I will make mistakes. So when somebody tells me that, I look at them and I go, okay, that's a buddy I want to dive with again, because we have a relationship here, a sense of equality where they won't feel embarrassed if I point something out, and neither will I. We're all just teammates underwater. That's a good thing. The water's that great equalizer,
No, and I don't know when you said this to me, but I remember you were telling me one time that you're out in the field in a remote place, and then you had a rule that if my buddy thinks that I'm hurt or tells me that there's something wrong, I'm going to do what the buddy says. I'm going to put my ego aside. and
Yeah.
basically like, I think you may have DCS, or I think something is going on with you. You're acting strange, especially when it comes to rebreathers. I'm going to be like, okay, you know.
Yeah, that's interesting on the DCS front, because we all know that a symptom of DCS is denial, and I don't think that denial is only embarrassment and emotional. Like, I really think that there's something neurochemical going on that causes us to not be able to think clearly. You know, we become a cat that's sick that just wants to hide in the corner.
Yeah, it wants to get away, right?
Right. Yeah. Leave me alone. Right. And I think that happens with DCS. So yeah, if someone says, are you okay? I think there's something wrong with you. Maybe you should be breathing some oxygen,
Right.
I'd say,
maybe
right, bring it on.
Yeah. Maybe you shouldn't dive,
Yeah. You don't seem yourself today. Yeah.
It's interesting, also the hierarchy aspect. I mean, I see that a lot in projects diving, especially when you have a big wheel principal investigator, and you have the lowly intern, or you have these roles where you really can't speak up, and that's something that I know that the diving community has started to speak of more. It's definitely more aware than it's ever been, but it's still far from where it should be. And
academia kind of fosters that kind of hierarchy, as do some government and institutional organizations as well. I've been involved in some accident analysis where we looked at that and identified the hierarchy, the culture as being a significant contributing issue in a particular accident. So yeah, it's really important to be aware of that. I mean, we're all just out trying. I mean, sure, we have missions, but we're also just out there, trying to have a great, meaningful, positive experience and come home at the end of the day to our loved ones. So why wouldn't we want someone to contribute to a safer situation by pointing out something to us?
Yeah, 100%. It's really the responsibility of role models and managers and people that are kind of in that spot to say, like, hey, let's talk, let's keep things open and communication lines open. It's really the roles that we kind of find ourselves into sometimes. So
sometimes you might even like take it a step further. If you need help trying to follow this thought line, I'll always ask myself, what would the headlines read? If I made this choice and I got myself hurt or killed, what are the headlines going to say? What are the internet forums going to say if something happens to me now? So this week, me not, driving 4 hours to go do this gig, filming a freediver under the ice. Like, if I had a car accident on the way to that dive site, then people would say, wow, that was incredibly thoughtless. The ICUs are full. There's no space in the hospital beds. And now, she's had herself a car accident that's, preventing someone else. Like my father got a pacemaker yesterday, and I'm so grateful he got that. But if I had driven to a dive site and had an accident, would I have caused one less hospital bed that didn't, that meant that my father wouldn't get a pacemaker? Those are the consequences. And so ask yourself, what would the headlines, what would the internet say about your decision if something went wrong right now?
Right. That's thinking kind of on the big picture of that. I know we've been chatting for about 30 minutes because sometimes we always like to go down the rabbit hole. But, one kind of last question that I would like to ask is that, if you had a chance to kind of tell your 16-year-old self, how to kind of go about the path that you went, what would you say to for advice to your 16-year-old self?
Well, patience, integrity, and resilience. You're judged by the the things that you do, the things that you say, the pictures online. And as you grow older and sort of gain that wisdom of the years, you recognize that more and more. And really, we all want to be that person that we wish we had met at that age, right? So
Right.
Encourage people, include people, and then personally have patience, integrity, and resilience in everything that you do. Because we will all get past this COVID thing. We'll all get our vaccines and wear our masks and stay socially distanced as long as we need to protect ourselves and our community. And then things will be okay again. So have patience and take this as an opportunity right now to shift gears and do something that you wouldn't have had time to do otherwise. Learn a new skill, get better at something, or reach out, create content, whatever it is that you do, but find the opportunity in the things that otherwise seem like they're holding you back.
Great words, Jill.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a great little episode on Divesoft TV. And thank you again, Jill Heinerth, for joining us today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And if anyone wants to reach out, you can find me at intotheplanet.com, and I'll happily answer your emails. I have a little more time right now.
Great. Yeah, great. Yeah, I definitely recommend everyone check out your books. They're such an awesome read.
Thanks. And keep doing what you guys are doing. You guys are a great example and role model behavior for all of us. And we all appreciate it, and we're honored to represent Divesoft as well.
All right. Well, thank you so much for that. Yeah, we try. It's it's things we're going to get back to the way they used to be, and it's going to be a new future too, and it'll be exciting as well. So lots of opportunity ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, take care. Be safe, Joe.
Thank you. Bye-bye.